All right. Seeing everyone slowly pop in.
Perfect.
All right. Let me go through and unmute you guys. All right. Hello.
Hi. Let me change.
Oh, we're going to be joined by some Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yes.
My favorite part of all this is being a voyeur into other people's lives.
Yes.
My webcam's not working. That's not a bad thing. I haven't washed my hair in a week.
Fortunately, smell-o-vision is also not a thing.
Yeah.
So
very A+. So, all right. Up here over in our corner is Bambi. She is an incredible artist. I've known her for a few years now. I met her in Minneapolis, and as I mentioned in the group, she's the one that's done all of my dinosaur tattoos. And it has been an absolute joy following her adventures over the last few years on social media. She has been kind of all over the place, and she's been hanging out on the beach for quite a while now, doing the art thing. So it's pretty exciting. And I kind of ask you guys to come with questions if you have any. I'll let her kind of do a little intro for herself. Sorry, you might see my dog. He might pop in and out because he's big and stupid and he wants to knock my tables over all the time. But yeah, so I'll let her kind of do a little intro of what she's doing and where she's at, and then you guys can ask some questions and we'll go from there. Okay. Awesome. It's the hats off to you there, Bambi.
Industry for the last 15 years, and the last 2 or 3, I kind of took a bit of a break from that and have been illustrating books and traveling.
I think your video paused out on us. Okay, she'll be back. There. It's like she'll come back. She's just been having issues.
Oh, okay. We see you now. Now we can hear you.
Yeah.
I installed some new software on my computer to try to get it to run faster, and this is now what it does. So hopefully that won't happen again. And if it does, I'll just keep poking back in. So does anybody have any questions for me?
Actually, I have a statement. After working with watercolor, I totally appreciate tattoo artists so much more. I'm not loving this yet.
It's got a heavy learning curve. So one of the reasons I love watercolor so much is that it's so incredibly portable. Like my whole setup, I mean, I have a big easel and stuff too, but my basic setup fits inside this bag. It's just
it's portable, but man, it's like I'm not loving it yet. It's a challenge. It's that learning curve.
Yeah, it's one of those things if you just let it do what it's gonna do, you're gonna have a much better time. Like trying to control watercolors is just
don't.
Taking calculated risks. Yeah. So I mean, I still destroy pieces all the time. But the nice thing about that is, especially if you're working on a bigger piece, I found if you destroy a part of it by making it too muddy or too dark or too light, and that part's unsalvageable, a lot of times I'll like cut down the other areas and either use those for like ATC cards, like the little small, this size, like almost all of my Patreon backer rewards are from reclaimed, like this is a
Sweet.
page in my book that I sold that just didn't, work. So I just keep that. I'm a paper hoarder. Like paper's expensive, and I buy really, really nice, good, expensive paper. So I just try to reclaim as much as I possibly can.
As a printmaker, I also suffer from the disease that is paper hoarding. As I look at my numerous flat files full of pretty paper,
and then you panic buy before a new project $200 worth of more paper because you're afraid that you don't have enough.
Yeah, nope, that was me. Eric looked at me like I was a crazy person when I was running a print edition. I'm like, I need this black paper because I'm going to print in gold ink on black paper. And he's like, okay, so how many pieces do you need? I'm like, oh, probably, like 10, but I've got to buy 20 in case I really mess up.
Yep, that's me all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hear that you guys are working on commissions for each other.
We're starting today.
How is that? Oh, so that's the assignment for today, or have you already chosen partners?
So not yet, because what they're doing is they're blind choosing their commissions. So they have filled out illustrator client briefs for their project, like artist calls, and those are going to go up after our artist talk into our Facebook group. So they will blind choose the project that they like, and then I will put them in contact with one another. So
that's great.
Yeah, it'll be super fun. There's a lot of good projects in there, I've read.
Are they going to do the whole project straight blind, or is there going to be communication between?
I'm going to give them communication once I link them up. I just don't want people choosing buddies.
Yes.
Yeah, I want you to choose for the merits of the project. So they're just choosing the projects blind, and then I'll put them in contact with one another so that they can then have that dialogue with one another as they move forward with the project. So
awesome. That was actually one of my points, is that it's important to take on projects that you're interested in, especially starting out, because it's going to take you 6 times longer than it's going to once you get your wheels underneath you. So it's important to find stuff that you and
we're losing you a little.
To trust your
there you go.
What's that?
I said we were losing you a little, so I was like, wait.
Nope.
Nope, we're good now.
I don't know what's going on with the internet today. Probably a million people on it.
Yeah, probably. And where are you right now? Like your location?
The woods.
Yeah.
I'm back in Minneapolis. My father's sick, so I'm gonna I came back early to be able to take care of him.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because you move around so much. I wasn't quite sure where your location was currently, so had to check.
Yeah, I'm back in Minneapolis for the foreseeable future.
What is your portable bag that you were mentioning before?
What is it?
What's inside of it? What do you usually put in?
Oh, I have a link to I have a YouTube video that has my entire supply list on it. So I can link you to that. But right now, because I had to pack, I found out that my dad was sick when I was in Mexico, so I had to pack my whole rig in like 20 minutes. So here's what I grabbed. I grabbed one big mop brush, and then these 2 brushes are pretty much the only ones I use. They're both Raphael. It's a 2 and a 6. And then something just a little bigger for big washes. But I found pretty much everything that I work on. These will do it because they come to a super nice point. They're not cheap. They're about $30 a piece, but they can go up to 80. But
I like that mop brush. What brand is that one?
That is a Princeton Neptune.
Okay, I've heard Princeton a lot. What size? Like 14? Bigger.
You guys, where that stylus. I use a Schminky palette, which you cannot get anymore. This is the most disgusting thing. All right, so my palette is used. It's about time for a new one, not because this one's been all over the world, but it's actually corroding now from salt water.
I was
and
gonna say that
sand
nice salt water, sea
and
air. Yeah.
But you'll also notice, like, a normal tin comes with just, like, you know, these few in there. Some of them, if you turn them sideways, you can cram even more in them. And then you can also shove tube colors, like, in every nook and cranny to optimize space. Yeah, this thing's looking pretty gnarly. So I grabbed those. I grabbed some white gouache, which I like to use as for my white highlights, or if you're doing galaxy stuff, you know, you can make good spatters with it. I carry my brushes in a toothpaste, or this is a toothbrush holder, and then a dropper for the water. That's pretty much everything I grabbed. I keep it pretty minimal. Usually I have a toothbrush too, but I found one here.
Yeah, those are accessible.
Mine's even cut off to, like, you save on that much weight and space.
Yeah.
I saw the toothbrush in one of the pictures and I was like, what is she using a toothbrush for?
Spatter.
Very interesting. Oh.
Yep.
It makes sense.
It makes all these really cool textures with your thumb. So
Okay.
I'll use it for textures over the top of other designs. I don't have everything right in front of me, but also too, if you do, like, if you're doing nighttime scenes or galaxy stuff, white gouache will do cool stars.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to, like, illustrate your book?
The first one, each of those dragon pages is probably 5 to 6 hours a piece. The facing pages each probably about an hour. So probably each time you open up the book is probably 6 to 10 hours worth of work. And then the unicorn book, both pages are fully rendered. And those take about 5 hours, 5 to 12 hours for each 11 by 14 spread. And then this book has humans in it, so it's taking me almost twice as long.
Oh.
See, I'm not kidding with you guys when I tell you projects and homework that they take hours and hours. So if you want to put in the good quality work, it definitely, time really, really does matter, that you give yourself that.
Yeah, and I'm fast too. I mean, that's a pretty speedy turnaround. The other thing I do usually when I'm working is I'll work in a series. So, like, I get impatient with what I'm working on. So, like, I won't just work on one Baby Yoda, I'll work on 6. So that while one is drying, you can work on something else and spell it and bring it in, so that you're not like fiddling around too much with the when it's wet, and then things can go sideways.
Okay.
Yeah, the dry time in between is very, very important.
It's fast. Important. It's faster in Mexico. For
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, if you don't have it, do you have any questions right now? Or I've got some things I kind of put together if you want me to talk about the commission process.
Any questions with what we just talked about yet? We good? Yeah, go ahead. Talk about the process.
Okay, cool. So like I said, I've been tattooing for about 15 years, and most of that is just straight commission work. So there's a few things when it comes to taking on commissions that I think is important that you keep in mind. And the first one is to trust your instincts with the project. People will have an idea of what they want to see. And you as an artist, they came to you, or you've chosen that project for a specific reason. So staying true to what you think is cool is important. But at the same time, it is a commission for somebody else. So you can't get too emotionally involved with the idea that you've come up with. Because it's really easy to get your feelings hurt.
Oh yeah.
If your idea gets rejected, and you need to grow a bit of a thick skin about that. A way that I found a way around that is to offer people 2 choices, and the choice that I like will be rendered much better. So I'd be like, so here's your idea. It's nice, you know, like we could do it this way. We could also do it this way. And like anytime when it's like fully colored and fully imagined and people see how enthusiastic you are about the idea that you have, they'll get on board with that, I think. But at the same time, it's like, if you can't, you have to be able to accept that they may just take the idea that they wanted to see and then do it, you know, just be like, okay, well,
I tried.
so it goes.
Trust me, I've definitely been there as an artist myself. I've had my heart broken a few times where I'm like, really? You're going to go with that? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes just the amount of enthusiasm for the project can get you over the top too. So I recently have contacted an author of mine, put out a call. He's like publishing a book or whatever, and he wants a cover for it. And I've been reading his work for a really long time, and the pay's not very good. And I can just tell from the email that he's going to be kind of a pain in the ass client. But I love his work, so I just am overwhelming him with options so that he chooses me, so that I get to do the project.
Yeah, being the squeaky wheel sometimes really helps.
Yeah. Pardon my language, we call it star fucking. You're like, yeah, take all of these things. They're so good. Look at how good I am, and you want me, you know? So
absolutely.
Let's see. Has anybody done any commissions before?
Technically, I did it one time. It was this guy. He wanted his dog. He wanted a portrait of his dog, but he wanted his dog to look like a Jedi.
Yeah.
Like Java Hutt. So I'm like, okay. So me and my friend tried to do it, and he wanted it in a large canvas, but he never got back to us. So we still have the painting at her house. It's a random portrait looking like Java Hutt.
Always take a deposit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always.
The deposit was not money. It was other stuff. So.
I mean, so long as you.
But I think he forgot. I legit forgot. I think he forgot.
Well, as long as you got something for your time, you know, that's important too. But yeah, I mean, I've had plenty of people who have been clients for years, and I'm like, sure, I'll just do it for you, and then they just disappear.
Yeah. Yeah, my friend has a wood carved like portrait of Notorious B.I.G. that she did not take the deposit for, and the person had her do it, and then now she just has this wood carved portrait in her house, and she is like, that's so far outside her wheelhouse. She's like Queen of Halloween, like spook master-tastic, like black metal girl. Now she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but
it's a reminder to take a deposit.
Yep.
The nice thing about that is that if you end up doing extra panels for something, I try to make them appealing for sale, for, you know, appealing, overall appealing. So like I do a lot of test panels, and I'll do them on like small 5x7 or these little like trading card sizes, just to try out techniques and shapes and things like that. And then I'll sell them, or I have a Patreon, so they get sent out in that format too. But at the end of the year, I do a big giant sale with just kind of all my extra stuff. And again too, like I'll cut down big paintings that didn't go right, but there's like a part that's kind of nice. So I guess don't be afraid to take your scissors to your work either. But yeah, but because people sell it. I mean, she put that Notorious B.I.G. thing up somewhere. Somebody snap it up.
Oh yeah,
you know?
I think it's gone by now because this was like quite a few years ago. But it was when she was just coming out of school with me, and like, so I think it's gone by now. But yeah, it was. She had it for a little while. She's like,
You would be amazed with what people will buy, especially if it's reasonably priced. So like I price a lot of my stuff fairly low, mostly because I'm extremely prolific and I can get away with it. But also too is that I believe that people should have original art in their homes. And I don't undersell yourself, obviously, but also at the same time, get your work out the door. There's nothing worse than sitting on a pile of dead art. People can smell it too. They can smell dead art. I don't know what it is. You can paint something beautiful, and if you don't sell it or get it out of the way right away, it will sit in your drawer, and then you paint another thing. It's not as nice. You put the two things up, and the thing that is new will sell, and the thing that is old will just you'll be sitting on it forever.
Yep. That's why I always make sure you like what you make, because you might be stuck with it forever.
Christmas cards.
Yeah.
Or have a lot of space.
I have a question on the image we have on our Facebook page with your books. And with the lettering on that, the one I'm looking at right now is the dog with the horn and the wings. Did you handwrite all that first and then paint over that, or is that actually written around the dog?
It's written around the dog. So my process for the that book. I'm also a little obsessed with like being able to monetize every part of the process because it's my job. So for that book, what I would do is I would do the outline of everything first, and then I would take a picture, and then that got translated into the coloring book. And then I would paint the background, that kind of washy stuff. And then I would paint the animal, and then all the lettering went in last over the top of it.
Man, I'm impressed with the lettering because I have a hard time writing a letter without having, it's like, oh, I didn't mean to use that word.
Well,
misspelling, stuff like that.
So those letters are, I mean, they're designed to be a textural element, and the biggest complaint that I get about my books is people can't read them.
Oh, okay. I thought it was actually a book as well. Okay, good.
It is, yeah. I mean, like you can like all that lettering is it's pretty illegible because it's designed to just like look cool. You can read it. It is actual, like it's all taken from primary sources that are in the public domain. And then on the facing page, it's in print.
Okay. No, it's just your cactus cat's kind of cool.
Oh,
that's another page altogether. I love that one. That's a nice little story. So
I'm hand lettering this next book, the whole thing, legibly, and it's terrifying.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
love the challenge.
Right. I'm opening myself to the idea that some of it might be in print as well, but right now it's all hand lettered.
Wow.
If you think of lettering as drawing, it's a little easier instead of thinking of it as you just learn the shapes, you know?
Yeah, it's the spelling that's horrible.
Yeah, I know. I live in fear because there's no comeback.
First.
But you can always, from my days in the movie industry, you can the quote is, "You can always fix it in post," you know?
True.
Everything that gets printed gets run through the computer anyway, so you can always make any brightness changes that you need to. It's part of the printing process. It's not cheating.
Okay.
Smart.
Yeah. I mean, don't be afraid. That's the whole thing, is that like watercolor is scary because people are afraid to make mistakes, but that's when the most interesting things happen.
Absolutely.
So you never use ink then, like calligraphy or anything?
I do. So I will use both a dip pen and a waterproof, mostly waterproof ink, and I'll use micron pens as well. And then the calligraphy in those books, in like the dog picture she's talking about, those are done with these parallel pens. They're made by Pilot, and they're cool because they're extremely cheap. They're cartridges. I'm not going to open that one because I know it's leaky. And the neat thing about them is, is that they're pretty cheap, and you can like dock the ends together and they'll share their fluids, which is how I get that like gradation on the calligraphy.
Mm.
I just practice lettering a lot. I've got pages and pages of calligraphy lettering, which again, too, if you practice at something that people will buy, then you've got people like sayings on stuff. Like people will buy quotes all day long. I love that.
So like, what do you do on your YouTube channel? Do you like do tutorials, or do you just show like your stuff?
Well, I'm starting to just ramp into that. Right now, I think it's mostly, I have a few tutorials. I have one like supply tour, and then I've got a couple of just speed painting things. And now that I'm a little more stable and my recording setup is a little more clear, you're going to see more of that as well. So if you have any suggestions, let me know, because I'm looking for content.
Have you been painting over a lot since quarantine?
Yes and no. So I am highly adapted for quarantining. Like, I like being inside. I like having access to actual internet. Right now I'm using this time to really get my back end in order. Like, my taxes are kind of a mess, and my website needed updating, and I just didn't run a t-shirts, so I actually have a place to ship from right now. So I am catching up right now on my Patreon, and I've got just a couple of commissions that I picked up. I'm letting the book just like sit to the side for a minute while I catch up on all my other things. Catch a breather. So yes and no.
How did you prioritize work, like when you started?
That one broke up from me a little bit. Can you ask it again?
Oh, she froze.
Oh, I'm frozen.
No,
she
No,
froze.
she was.
How did you prioritize? Is it not coming through? Oh, or you
now
already
you're
answered
good.
that? Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, how did you prioritize making so many pieces when you first started?
For the books?
Yeah. Any print.
Sure. So for the books specifically, I just had a big giant list. A friend of mine helped me write the book. He did all the writing part, so he gave me just this big list of animals, and I started just like taking them as I found them interesting, and then that got overwhelming, so I just cut the whole page. And I don't know. Oh, I froze. You're all frozen.
Yeah, it froze a little bit.
I think it's back now.
Just gotta give it a second.
Any day.
Better?
Oh, hey, okay. All right, we're good, I think.
Okay. I was like, wow, I'm just talking to crickets here.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that you heard. How did I prioritize the drawings?
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard
I
up
guess.
to your friend made the list and you started going through the ones that you were most intrigued by. And then
Yeah.
that's when it cut out.
Right. And then I realized that it felt a little overwhelming. So I just cut that list into pieces, put it into a jar, and would just pull one out and work on that one.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So did they not have like dates they needed to be done by?
So I self-published. That dragon book wasn't never intended to be a book. It was just a thought experiment that I did with a friend of mine. You know, he had some content he needed, and I was like, I like to draw dragons. Like, I'll draw dragons. And then all of a sudden, they started to like look cohesive, and they morphed into this thing. And people were like, well, that looks like a book. And I was like, it does look like a book. So I put it together, and we put it on Kickstarter. And I was like, oh, this will be fine. I'll just sell like 100 copies to my jerk friends and get on with my life. And then Kickstarter picked it up, and we sold over $75,000 worth of dragon books.
Yay.
Wow. That's so cool.
It ruined and saved my life all at the same time, because I didn't expect that to happen, so I didn't calculate shipping. I'd never done anything like this before. Like, it put me into debt. It was like
Oh God.
Oh yeah, I was crying every night. It was a nightmare because I miscalculated the shipping by almost $10,000.
Ouch.
So if you ever launch a Kickstarter, talk to me first. But the second one went much smoother.
So you didn't make any profit off of the first one?
At this point, it's impossible to say. The night.
Oh, she froze again.
Oh, you froze again.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The nice thing about the first one is that I was able to sell all the originals.
Okay.
Phooey.
Would you ever illustrate another book?
I'm in the middle of it right now.
Would you ever do one for yourself where you write and illustrate one?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Yep.
Giving you the list. Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, it's good. Yeah, so the first two were kind of field guide styles that I did with a friend of mine, and then this one is all me. So it's we're doing it and I'm doing it in a slightly different format. So instead of field guide, it's going to be magical geographic, which is if Dumbledore subscribed to National Geographic, what it would look like if it landed on his desk.
Is this the one with the legible writing that you're doing?
That's the one that Cactus Cats is in.
Okay.
So where you can actually read the book.
I'm excited.
So how do you calculate pricing?
Oh man. So a couple of different ways. I'll take a look at what the market is holding. So like I'll look on Etsy. So when I was looking up, I did run a pet portrait commissions for like Christmas. So I just went on Etsy and looked at what those were selling for. With the bigger pieces, sometimes you just have to ask yourself, it's like how much, because you fall in love with them a little bit. So sometimes it's like, how much would somebody have to pay me to let my baby go?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you start having some base pricing, it becomes easy to price everything else. So like my 11 by 14s, sell from $200 to $400 or $500, kind of depending on how complex they are. And you just kind of start to get a feel for it. Some people talk about an hourly rate, and I can't calculate an hourly rate. I can when I'm tattooing, like that's easy. Pricing physical art it's so hard.
Why is tattooing so easy, relatively?
Oh, because you get an hourly rate and you just charge it. I'm like,
Okay.
that's going to take 2 hours. That's $400. That's going to take 3 hours. That's $600. You know, it's just, you start to, I did it for long enough that I know how long things are just going to take me, you know?
So you don't have that same ability to guesstimate on your art how long it's going to take.
Yeah, sometimes for me it goes by size. So like with my 5x7s, I have if they're pretty simple, I keep looking around because I think I'll have some. Yeah, give me 10 seconds. Okay, I thought it would have had stuff behind the curtain. Okay, so if it's simpler, I've got basically kind of two things. It took, I don't know, about an hour. This guy took maybe hour and a half, maybe 2. I'm unstable again. Did you
It
see?
froze. That's
Yeah.
better though, yeah.
Yeah.
The one
Okay.
on the left took you an hour and a half.
Yeah, this one took me a little longer. This one took me not quite so long. So like these ones I sell, I don't know, $25, which is cheap for watercolors, but they sell. Like, and then the more complex ones I usually do for like $35. So there's a point where you just kind of get some base pricing for yourself and you can go from there.
For your bear piece, the one, the bear with like has other illustrations inside of him.
Yeah.
You get the color mix.
I missed the question.
Yeah.
I think it was about how we get the color mixed.
It's
Which
like,
what?
It's like purple and blue. It's like a starry kind of thing.
So I know that she's.
Yeah.
I posted.
How do you get the colors to mix out?
Dang.
I'll wait till she comes back to answer her question. I think it's about color mixing on the. Did you do the bear with like the landscape in the back?
Yeah. I posted one of your like galaxy like forest animals, and I grabbed the bear. So
Cool. Yeah, I should do a tutorial on those. They're actually pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll wait till she comes back to fully dig into that.
cool.
Oh, there you are. Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hi. We lost you there for a minute. So that's a wet on wet technique mostly. So I saturate the paper and then drop lakes of color in there. And then, you'll notice sometimes too, depending on the pigment, which is why you start to get favorites, is that different pigments will act differently. So like I have a few that I call chasers. I don't know what makes them do this, but when you put it in a wet environment, some of pigments, when you bring it in, will chase all the other colors away.
Oh, wow.
Gouache can do it sometimes too. Pure pigments do it. So that's why it's nice to work with the same materials over and over and really try them on like dry and dry, wet and wet, and just kind of see what they do to each other. Because like I have a specific blue that will just chase everything away from it. Pipestone red does it too.
Okay.
So once you know which ones do which, then you can then you get this kind of galaxy stuff.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird. And those make good bookmarks and things like that. If you've got a bunch of paper laying around and you just want to like play around with your things, just making little swashes of color with like, and then letting it dry and then writing little like sayings or text over the top of it. People love that. People love it. They love it. So,
Okay.
makes a good gift.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or questions?
When you were first starting out, did you have any trouble kind of motivating yourself to work on new projects and new ideas and stuff, or has it always come kind of naturally to you to get
No,
yourself
it's always work. There's a book called Stephen Preston's The War of Art. I'll send you the information for that too, so you can link to it. I think that every single artist should read it. It's thin, it's cheap, it's a super easy read. Being a professional means going to work, and sometimes that means sitting down and putting anything on paper. It's doing swashes of color so that they can dry, so you can do lettering over the top of them, just so that you did something today. Because sometimes just sitting down and getting color on the page is going to get you over that hurdle, like over that feeling. I mean, sometimes you just let it go, and sometimes you take a walk and you take a break, because burnout is a real thing too. But if you want to be a professional, you have to go to work, and that means sitting down every day with the intention of putting something on the page. And it's a muscle like anything else. Like, you're gonna make ugly things, make tons of ugly things, like, because again, you'll never know who's gonna love them, and nobody has to see them, and everything you learn from. So sometimes on my worst days, when I just didn't want to go, and I'm like, okay, I'll just I have a kind of either prompt lists or some things. I've always got some sort of project I got to work on. Okay, I'll just I'll do the basis for the Baby Yodas. And then all of a sudden I've worked for 6 hours and I've got 4 paintings that I just didn't intend on doing that day. So I think going to work helps. To go to work.
Have you always been independent, or did you have at one point in time, did you start at an organization and then broke out?
So I have an advantage of going to work in that I tattooed for so long.
But did you start with your own tattoo studio initially, or were you an artist in another studio?
I see. Yeah, I worked for people for the first 10 years of my career, and then I opened my own shop, and then sold it so I can go work at other people's, because it's a pain. It's a pain in the ass to run a business.
Gotcha.
I was also super burned out. I just didn't want to tattoo anymore, and because I'd been working. If you enter the tattoo field, I mean, it's 40, 60, it's 60 hours a week plus the time that you're drawing at night. It's grueling if you're busy.
Yeah.
So I pretty much didn't tattoo for the last couple of years. And now that I've taken a break from it, that energy and that feeling is coming back, and I found a new community that's really supportive and rewarding, and I'm excited about it again. So sometimes you have to go to things and places that will force you to become inspired. So like taking classes like this, or going to conventions or going to art shows.
I think she froze.
I think she did too.
Yeah.
There we go. Better?
Yes. Now you're back.
Yeah.
Supporting other artists and continuing your education will help with that. Because even if it's like you take a class in printmaking or something completely different, you'll learn things about negative space and contrast. You'll learn things that you'll bring into other mediums that you can lean on. So anything you learn is good.
You still play around with
Textures, like paper textures, or
like with salt, and we also use ceramic. What was it?
Saran wrap, plastic wrap, and salt, and I had them play around with all kinds of strange materials, alcohol. Yeah. So,
Yeah. I use
not
them.
alcohol, but
Hey, you said vodka works.
Vodka.
yeah, it does.
Trust me, vodka will get you a lot of inspiration. No, I don't use a ton of it in my work. I do play around with it for little stuff, because I've never quite mastered the technique of using weird materials or like different textural materials, but I see other people do it and I really like it. So I keep trying to like play with it and see where it could fit with me. So
What do you like so far?
I use the salt a lot. I've never used a lot of alcohol, but there's a bottle of it sitting right here, so maybe I'm going to try that next. And I've never actually even done the saran wrap thing. I should try that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I'm pretty
that
much
was a really cool one.
I'm pretty much self-taught, so I never took any real formal training in this medium. So it took me 6 times as long to learn anything.
Gouache, white gouache. Which one is that one again? Is that the one that smells like fish?
Gouache?
No, that was the.
What's gouache again then?
Gouache is you could either get that or the white ink. It's functionally kind of the same. Is that gouache is a watercolor. It just has a chalk in it, so it makes it slightly more opaque. It's my personal favorite painting medium. But yeah, so it functions the same as like the white ink if you chose to get the white ink too. That really opaque white ink. It can give you those really nice bright highlights on top of your painting, as opposed to leaving the paper exposed for the white to come through as your highlights. You can go in and retroactively add those highlights in to brighten your picture up, your painting.
I use it as a wash fairly frequently. So like I'll mix it with, because I also like to paint with it sometimes, but I don't have a gouache set. And that portability is my thing. So I will mix my pigments into my gouache and make little velvety, because they get such a beautiful like velvety texture. And like some of it, like if you like, I love to use like red gouache as just a flat background, because you get this like perfectly flat matte plane from gouache. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it feels more technical to me than watercolor does. Like,
yeah, it does. I mean, it's heavily used in design work and product design. It's kind of, that's what the fallback is gouache paint as opposed to your watercolor, because you have like that good medium where it's fluid and you can work with it, but you can also get really, really precise and control gouache, which you don't really get to do with watercolor. It's a little bit more haphazard. So
so I do have a lot of detail. I don't know if it's some of my dragons, some of the things are extremely detailed, and so you can do it. The only thing with watercolor is that like to get those high levels of details, you do a sloppy wet bottom, and then bone dry paper and wet paint on top of that. Because if you keep as soon as if the paper itself is dry, you can get those like super heavy, like detailed things. And a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll just kind of draw with my paint. I'll draw the outline with my paint, and I'll just go in with water and just like pull the paint from the line to the inside. That's how a lot of my paintings are done. My coffee is full of grounds.
No.
Delicious.
That was a fun, exciting thing to just discover. So what I do a lot of fantasy work. Is that have you guys what have you guys been working on?
Landscapes lately.
Oh yeah, landscapes are awesome.
Landscapes, still lives. We did some crystals and geodes. What else did we do?
Well, it's difficult.
Yeah, just that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we got cut off right at the halfway point of the semester. So they did a lot of work with like practicing techniques and stuff, because these are my foundational watercolor guys.
Awesome.
So they're watercolor babies coming into it for the first time. I do have some repeat students from my acrylic painting class, so they're a little familiar with paint, but watercolor was kind of a new ball game for all of them. So they started with working with like texture, figuring out how to utilize the brushes and paint strokes and just really the mechanics. Did a couple still lifes working with how color worked, and they were starting their kind of first fun still life, which then the school got shut down. So now we're moving into this online remote world, which is quite different. But yeah, so they kind of did some landscapes and stuff like that because they were moving into their illustration unit. So I had them practicing, getting used to doing like interior and exterior and stuff like that. So
oh man, interiors. Fun fact, the reason that my books are and my illustrations are the way they are is like I did not have a good foundation in things like landscape and interiors. So
okay, you're back.
I didn't have those. I didn't have the foundation skills. So backgrounds threw me for a loop. So I just didn't do them, which I'm now learning. So I guess sometimes you can get away with. It's not good to say get away with avoiding things that you don't want to do by finding another workaround, but that's part of art too. So like, if you're not interested in it, you're just going to slog through it. So if you can find an interesting way to work around it, or just for a while I would just do the barest minimum of background behind it, which is all that weathering stuff, or like just the hint of some landscape. And then I see other people's work. I'm like, God, that like landscape looks really good. I wish I could do it like that. I'm like, oh, I could if I just did it. So it's good you'll have those foundational skills to fall back on, because once you're off on your own, you'll be painting. You'll be like, I wish I could do this. Like, oh no, I do know how to do that. I have a wonderful teacher who taught me.
Oh. Thanks for the plug. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? I know we're getting close to the end of our hour here. Any burning hot questions in your brain space?
My biggest advice is to put it out there. You're never, ever gonna feel like you're good enough. You're never, ever gonna feel like it's right. There's very rare moments in your life where you have these moments where you're like, this is awesome, like, because the next day you're just getting better and better. So the artists that you see are the ones that put their work out there. And so do it before you're ready, and be aware that criticism happens, but most of those people don't have work out. Those are fearful people, and you are brave warriors. So put it out there.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Does anyone have any comments or follow-ups to her lovely advice?
Time.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And
if you have any questions, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook, and then I'll shoot you the links to stuff that we talked about. And if there's any tutorial stuff that you want to see, I'll make those videos.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll post this up on, I'm going to post this recorded meeting up on YouTube as well, on our personal kind of little class YouTube that I have going. So if you ever want to reference back to this yourself, or pull it, or edit some things out that you might want for something, it'll be available to you too. So,
Okay.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much. And I hopefully will see you at some point whenever this quarantine is lifted. And have an okay time. Stay well.
Yeah, you
Go
too.
ahead.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
All right.
you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.